What's up, guys?
Today we're going to show you guys how simple it is to make your own broth. We're going to do it two ways today. First, we're going to start by showing you guys how to make meat broth, and then we're going to make bone broth. I know there are a lot of different recipes out there, but this is just how we like to do it in our kitchen, and we think that you guys might like it too. So it's pretty simple. If you can simmer water in a pot on the stove, then you can make your own broth. So do you want to talk a little bit about this bird right here?
This bird right here. So this is the bird that we're going to use for our meat broth.
Right.
We have Cornish cross that we raise, which are meat chickens, which are typically roasters that you put you put pieces of chicken on your plate, right? The whole chicken would go on the table, and you get a drumstick or a thigh on your plate.
It's a chicken that you're used to seeing on your plate for a meal. This is not that chicken.
This bird is a rooster. This is a barred rock rooster that we raised here this year, and there's plenty of meat on the bones, but they don't look pretty, and they don't look, they're not as succulent, I guess, or whatever you'd say. But they taste great, and they make really good broth. So the meat that's on this chicken, it's not going to be the same as the meat that's on a drumstick from the grocery store.
It's going to be flavorful.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be as big of a breast or as big of a thigh as you're used to seeing, right?
So the meat that's going to come off this bird is going to go into the soup that we make with the broth from the meat bird.
If someone wanted to make meat broth out of a Cornish cross, could they do that?
Yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah.
You can totally do that.
You could do that, but I feel like I want to save that bird for eating.
Yeah.
And I want to take this bird that is not, I mean, it's fine for eating, but it will be better used in a soup.
It's fine for eating, but it's really not the same. Like we have not roasted a lamb.
So I guess we really can't say that.
So but I've had people that have asked me about it. They said I killed my chicken and I roasted it and it tasted weird. It doesn't taste right.
But typically when people are processing a rooster, it's a rooster that they've had, that they've raised, it's been around maybe for a little while, or even an old laying hen. It's an old hen, right? They've been moving around, especially if they're a pasture bird. Their muscles have been used, they've been running around for years. That meat's going to be tougher than this, which we raised literally 16 weeks and then it was done.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a little bit more tender than an old laying hen. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started and show you guys how simple it is to do meat broth. So he's going to take this bird, we're going to put it in a pot. And again, I know there are a lot of different recipes out there. This is just how we do it in our kitchen, and this is what works for us. So once he's got that in there, then I have a couple other things, that I tend to stick to and put in there. So I don't know if you want to wash your hands and kind of show everybody how we do it. But the next thing I do is I'm going to, again, I know lots of people have different ways, but there are 4 things that I stick with to make sure that my broth turns out how I want it. So the first thing is I'm going to fill it, and I'm going to start with cold water. Coldest water I can get out of my sink. And as it's filling, I used to think, I'm going to fill this pot as high as I possibly can get because I'm going to get more broth, right? But my broth doesn't turn out good when I do that. So I literally fill this till it just covers the bird or just covers the bones later when I'm going to do bone broth. I don't want to fill my pot too high, just so it's covered, okay? I find that it makes the broth more gelatinous and more flavorful when I do it that way. It kind of looks like dirty sink dishwater if I fill the whole thing up. And that's definitely not what you want. So I've covered it cold water just so that it covered the bird. And then I want to make sure that I heavily salt this, right? That's the other thing I saw the other day. If you don't properly salt your broth, then it's going to taste like dirty dishwater. So I usually do like a heavy ½ a tablespoon, put that in there. And then I got some peppercorns, so salt and pepper.
How many peppercorns do we put in there?
I just sprinkle them in there, I don't have a recipe, right? There's no rhyme or reason. I just kind of
so like a tablespoon?
Yeah, I just toss them in there. And then bay leaves, I'll toss like 1 or 2 bay leaves in there. I bought a lot, so I kind of go heavy with them. I'll put a couple of those in there. The next thing that we do in our house, look, anytime we use veggies for something, we toss the scraps in the freezer in a Ziploc bag because that, to me, is not garbage. It's what's going to make my broth flavorful. So typically in my broth, I'm going to do carrots, celery, and onions, right? So instead of just using the whole thing of celery, I have these celery tops, which are gonna give me the same flavor. And I use the celery in my soup, and the tops I've just had frozen in a bag. I'm gonna toss, I don't know, just toss a handful in there. And then I also have some carrot tops. That's gonna kind of give you not the same exact flavor as a carrot. It'll give you flavor like a parsley. So I'm gonna rip this out while Daniel, he's got some sourdough in the oven, so he's gonna pull that out. This is all frozen together, and usually I make a mess when I pull these tops out, but it does give good flavor to your broth. So I'm gonna try to cut this, get some of these out, because it's gonna taste delicious. Please don't burn me. All right, so I got some carrot tops in there. And again, I literally keep a bag of these tops in the freezer, and then when I make broth, I pull it out, I throw a little bit in there.
Word of the wise. These carrot tops,
they make a mess.
They make a mess. It's really nice to not use a whole carrot in your soup, but there's little green leaves everywhere when you put them in the freezer.
Typically, when we cook, we'll take the onions and we'll save the peels. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we do our meat broth. But for now, I want to just make sure I get plenty of onion in here. So I'm going to cut this guy in half. I'm not going to put the whole thing in there, but skins and everything is going right in my broth. Okay, and I'll save the other half of that onion. If you want the skins in there too, lots of good flavor. So sometimes when I cut it up, actually I just, if I'm going to use this, like I'm going to use this onion in my soup later, I literally will just cut the rest of this off and put the peels in here so I have the so I'm not throwing the peels away, and all that's going to go right in my broth. Okay, so I have celery, I have onions, and I'll peel an extra layer off in there. I'll put that away later. And then sometimes I keep carrot peels in a bag too, and I'll just throw that in there, but Daniel's got his own experiment with some carrot peels right now, so I'm just going to take a whole carrot. So the peels are fine. I'll break this in half. Toss that whole carrot in there. And then the last thing I like to put in there is a little bit of ginger. I feel like it's really good for your belly, but we have a whole bag that we just keep in the freezer that we got from a farm ages ago. I literally bought all the ginger that they had left.
If you ever seen a fresh ginger come out of the ground, it looks amazing. Yeah. So if you're at a farm and someone's selling fresh ginger, buy it all and put it in the freezer because it's great to have.
So that's it, you guys. The other thing I sometimes will put in there, and it just depends. I don't think it's in here. I'll put a little bit of poultry seasoning in there. You can put fresh herbs in there too. I just keep this poultry seasoning handy just because, it's a little busy. So sometimes I also toss a little bit of poultry seasoning in. This has sage, thyme, there's onion in it too. What else? There's a couple other things in here, celery seed, but this is just easy and simple, and we're not going to get kicked out of the homesteading community if we don't put fresh herbs in here. But if you have fresh herbs, then you can toss those in there too. I just like that poultry seasoning in there. So I have the bird, celery, carrot, onion, a little bit of ginger, salt, pepper, bay leaves, and that's it. So then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put this on the stove, and then turn the burner on, and look, again, I know everybody has their methods, but I try my hardest to monitor this at the beginning because I do not like to let it get to a boil. I find that I lose a lot of my broth that way, so I start with cold water. I try to get it just to a simmer, and then when sometimes there's going to be this like grayish looking like sludge that will come to the top. I scrape that off and toss it because it just frankly doesn't taste good, and I don't cover my broth. Again, I know some people do. That's just how I do it. Cold water start. Don't cover it. Skim the stuff off of the top. Usually it's kind of at the beginning, and I try not to let it get to a boil. And so for this meat broth, really my goal is just to cook this bird. So I'm probably going to let this go for, 3 hours maybe. And then when that chicken starts to shred off there really nice and easily, then I'll know that my broth is done, and we'll strain it. So we'll check back with you guys in a little bit.
And then we'll take that.
Yep.
meat and make a soup out of it.
Yep, and then we'll start our soup, and then we'll show you guys how we do our bone broth.
All right.
Cool. All right, we got to like pretty good simmer now. So see this foam that comes to the top? That's what I skim off. So we'll keep a little bowl near the pot, and then as I see it come up every once in a while, I mean, I'm doing other things in the kitchen, but as I see it come up, I'll just leave that bowl here, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but I just try to get some of that. See how it's kind of gray? Your broth will taste better if that's not in there. Yeah, so that foamy stuff is what you're gonna skim off the top. And if you don't get it all, it's okay, but just try to get what you can. And sometimes I end up scooping a couple peppercorns with it. That's why I put more than 7. We read a recipe one time and it said, put 7 peppercorns. 7 peppercorns, just toss some peppercorns in there. Seems a little crazy to me, so yeah. Just let that go now for a couple hours until that meat easily shreds off the bone. Get down in there. There we go. It smells so good.
Is this going in the tortilla soup?
The broth?
This meat and broth?
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. All right, so the broth is done. This chicken's been cooking here for what, 3 hours at least?
Yeah, 3 hours.
And now I'm gonna take that chicken, shred it all up, and use that meat for the tortilla soup we're making.
And we're gonna use the liquid that's in it for the broth for the soup.
Yes. This chicken is gonna just fall off the bone. So as you usually, we'll take some tongs. And the bones, I just put the bones right back in here because we're gonna, maybe I can't do this yet.
It's too hot.
It's pretty hot. Because we're gonna strain this out later and the pigs will get whatever's left in there. Ow. No, yeah, I can't do that.
If it's too hot, you can wait.
Let's pull it out and let it cool off for a few minutes.
The rooster was free, and then it's gonna give us meat for the soup and more. This will be more than enough for the soup. And then it's also giving us broth, and then it's going to feed our one lone pig that's left.
The soup that went into chicken tortilla soup. Oh, and there's the chicken. Yummy.
It's okay.
It's one rooster worth of chicken.
And then we can add more broth if we need it. I mean, it's meant to be like a pretty thick soup, but I think we could use a little bit more broth. Right? I mean,
Yeah. We just pour it right in until you're done, until you're happy with it. I think the jar is too big. That's my concern. It's not a big concern. And I could be wrong.
Yeah, I want to label them both and then compare the side by side to them. So this is meat broth. We're going to let it cool, and then you'll be able to see how gelatinous that is compared to the bone broth. So we're going to start the bone broth next to show you that.
All right, so that is meat broth.
So we've got some chicken tortilla soup going on the stove with the meat that was cooked in the broth. We shredded up, we put that in there, and then the broth that came from it is also what this is cooking in. So now we're going to show you bone broth. So the difference is when you do meat broth, you have meat on the bones and you do bone broth, you're just using the bones. So we have, the way that we do it in our house, again, I know everybody does it different. When we cook a whole roaster chicken and we don't have time to do the broth, we literally just toss the bones in a bag and throw it in the freezer so that when we have time to do it, we'll go ahead and make our broth. So here he's pouring in there, it's got the bones left over from when we ate a chicken, and anytime we cut up onions, we'll just throw the peels and maybe a layer or two of it in there so that when I do broth, I'm not having to cut up a whole onion like you saw me do before because I didn't have enough scraps for it. So we got the bones in there and a little bit of onion scraps, and then just like we did before, I'm gonna start with cold water. And I wanna fill it so it literally just covers the bones. I don't wanna fill it too high. Your broth isn't gonna turn out good if you put too much water in it. So I'm gonna fill that up, and then generally speaking, I put very similar things in there. A couple adds, and I'll talk about what we do and why. Okay, so just like we did before, we're gonna do a little bit of peppercorns, just, you know,
7.
shake some in there.
25.
Maybe 7.
I think there's at least 30 in there.
I do a half a tablespoon, or a heavy half tablespoon, not a full. I mean, I could put more of Redmond's real salt is what we like to use. And then the other thing that we do to make it easier, so when we process chickens, we did it smarter this time, I think. So do you want to talk about what we did so it's leaking?
Oh, it's leaking.
Just be mindful.
I will do it this way. So this is a broth bag that we put together with a pair of chicken feet, a chicken heart, and a liver, and a neck in the bag. And we also put in a couple of pieces of carrot, and it looks like a celery top. Is that what that is?
There's some carrots in there. There's celery. There's a bay leaf.
Oh, a bay leaf. Yep.
So that when I'm in a hurry and don't have time to just go through my fridge all those things, I just dump it right in here.
So we got like, 25 of these
go.
bags downstairs in the freezer.
Yep.
It's ready to go.
And I'm going to cut off a little bit of these carrot tops because that's not in there.
You can also use the chicken head. A lot of people put the chicken head into their broth as well, but we haven't quite gotten to that point yet.
So why would someone want to put chicken feet in their broth? Do you know why people put chicken feet in their broth?
Because of the collagen in that?
Yeah, it adds a lot of. It's gonna make your broth really, really gelatinous. And you'll see, we'll show you kind of a side-by-side comparison. And also, I meant to put a bag of all those things in with my meat broth too. I just forgot. So.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. I do have a bag. Typically, I'll put the feet and all that, the heart and the neck and the.
So you can put that all right into the meat broth too.
Yeah, all that can go into the meat broth too. So then I was cutting up carrots for dinner, not for that soup. There's no carrots in there. So I literally have all the carrot peels. I know I have a carrot in there already, but hey, more can't hurt, more flavor. So I'm just gonna toss all those peels in there. Anytime, usually we cut up carrots for something, we'll just like we do with the onions, we'll just toss the peels in there and then I'll put them right in my broth. And then the last secret ingredient, what's our last secret ingredient, babe?
ACV?
Yeah, so I don't do this in my meat broth, but I do it in the bone broth. Put a splash of ACV in there, apple cider vinegar. Anything acidic, well, the ACV, or some people I think will do a splash of wine. We could do a little bit more. And what that does is it helps draw the nutrients and the minerals out of the bones. So I don't do that for the meat broth because all the meat is there, but I do add that into my bone broth and I find that it makes it more flavorful. So yeah, so we have the bones, cold water, onion peels, carrot peels, celery, a heavy half a tablespoon of real salt, some peppercorns, a splash of ACV,
And a bay leaf.
and we could put some ginger in there too. I like to add ginger. I know before I had some fresh turmeric, and I'm gonna peel a little knob off there. Before I put fresh turmeric in there, I don't honestly like putting the turmeric flower. It's just a personal preference. I don't like the flavor, but some people will just do that or lemongrass. Any fresh herbs are good. There are some that you want to be mindful, like the aromatics, like You don't want to put lemon in there because it's going to make it bitter.
Which is fun.
You don't also you don't want to do stuff in the brassica family, like you don't want broccoli or things like that because it's going to make your broth bitter.
Yeah.
Trust us.
Yeah.
We've learned.
Which is
the
weird
hard way.
because if you put a lemon into a if you put a lemon into the carcass of a chicken and roast it, it's delicious.
Right.
But if you put a lemon into the broth,
Tastes
it's no
terrible.
bueno.
So if you do, and this is just that poultry seasoning. So I like this stuff. But if you have fresh sage, fresh thyme, fresh
Rosemary.
any of those herbs,
Rosemary would be good.
But if you roasted it in the chicken, you want to make sure you pull that stuff out. So we have all this stuff from when we process. What about if somebody wanted to make bone broth, but they don't have chickens that they processed in their yard? How could they make bone broth?
So this carcass that's in here is raw. We cut up the pieces and marinated them and roasted them individually on the grill. But if you roasted a chicken, if you bought a chicken from the store and roasted it, and the bones that were left over from when people ate, those bones can go in here and you can make broth with that too. So you can make the chicken in the oven for a meal and then take what's left over that's been cooked and then put it in the pot for bone broth. I mean, otherwise,
So
any other way you can get a chicken.
if someone doesn't raise their own chickens like we do, they could still make their own bone broth, right?
Yeah.
If you're buying a chicken, which from the store, that's fine. We would encourage you to check out a farmer's market to maybe see if you could support a local farmer, because I guarantee you that broth.
Oh yeah, we've done side by side with we call it poo chicken and farm chicken, home raised chicken or farm raised chicken, and there's a clear difference in taste and texture and sight and everything.
And what about because I really do think that the heart, the feet, the neck, and all that make it so much more jiggly, gelatinous. How would somebody get a hold of those things if they don't process their own birds?
I don't know.
How could someone
I
do
think
that?
you can buy chicken feet at the store.
So sometimes
Might be able to
I've
find
seen
that.
them at like an organic market before, but go to a farmer's market. Talk to someone that's there that raises chickens, and I guarantee you, if you ask them about feet and hearts and things like that, that they would be excited to try to get those things for you.
Yeah, they or you can go volunteer to help them butcher one day.
Yeah.
And they'll probably send you home with a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So again, I got this on the stove. I started with my cold water. I put all those things in there. I'm gonna try not to let it get to a boil. I'm gonna try to just let it simmer. Skim the foam off the top just like I did before, but this one is gonna go way longer. Typically the sweet spot here is about 18 hours. So if I start this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm gonna pull this off the stove tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll just put it in the lowest possible spot on my burner overnight. And then we'll strain it just like before, and then we'll kind of show you side by side the difference between the meat broth and the bone broth.
Yeah. The bones that we have inside of us don't just hold us up, but they store energy and nutrients, and they're in there. But it takes a long time to get them out. So low and slow with the bone broth.
Yeah, and the ACV helps do that too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So we'll let this go tonight and show it to you tomorrow.
I don't cry when it rains no more, or I get dirt on my shoes. I don't mind.
All right. So this has been cooking for 18 hours now.
By cooking, he means simmering.
Simmering. Barely simmering, really. It's on the low when we go to bed, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a good amount of broth here.
What you gonna do with all the stuff left in there?
It's going out to Whiteface. Our gangster pig.
That'll go to the pigs.
I thought about Piggy Smalls.
Piggy Smalls. All right. Stay tuned, folks. We'll do a side-by-side comparison when it cools off.
Hello. Okay, so it is not the next day. It is several days later. We have our meat broth here, and we have our bone broth here. See, there's a difference in color, and we're
Come a
going
little
to.
closer. I want to see the difference.
You see the difference in color?
Which one's which?
The one on the right is bone broth, and the one on the left is meat broth.
It doesn't really look that much different in the picture, but
It doesn't look that much different. So, one, I think the word gloopy is what my wife used. One might be more gloopy than the other. We're gonna pour it out so you can see. Meat broth is here on the left. So here's the meat broth going into a cup. Ooh, nice and clumpy. Yeah. We're gonna heat it up and do a taste test too. And then so there's the meat on the left, and the bone broth here is on the right. So this one is a little more liquidy. And there you go. So there's a difference there. They don't always look the same when you do them. Like bone broth doesn't always look like bone broth all the time, or meat broth isn't always the same. But this gelatinous consistency is what we like. It's pulling nutrients out of the bones and putting it into our bodies. So we heat this up and taste it out, and say thank you for watching.
All right, are you ready for a blind taste test?
All right, see if I can tell which one is meat, which one is bone. I don't know how to tell.
All right, you have to close your eyes though.
Oh, they look different?
I mean, you can open your eyes. I'm going to pass you a cup.
I will look at you, not the cup.
Okay, you ready?
So this is one.
Yep. Just don't look inside.
Don't look inside, because I guess I can tell what
You
looks.
could probably tell by the color.
So not looking at the color.
Don't look. Don't
Does it
also
burn my mouth
don't
hole?
burn your mouth either. How does that taste?
Tastes delicious.
What does it taste like?
Tastes like
Don't look at it.
Like what's the Old Bay?
There's no Old Bay in any of this. All right.
All right.
Give me your hand.
Just put it down and give it a handle.
You tried to cheat. I saw you. Okay.
All right, that one is different.
Okay.
Okay, that one tastes like it's.
Hold on. Which one do you like better? Number 1 or number 2? First one or
Probably
second?
number 2.
The second one?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's more rich and like creamy.
Okay. Okay.
They're definitely different.
Okay.
It's more oily.
Well, we also left the fat in both of them, which is fine.
Yeah.
You can do that. Sometimes we try to distribute it throughout.
I'm gonna go with this being the bone broth, the second one.
That one is the bone broth.
Yeah.
But you have to also remember, we usually put
They look
feet.
the same. I can't tell.
We usually put feet and a heart and a neck in both, and I didn't put it in the meat broth this time.
Oh, that's
So
right.
I wonder if that would change your mind if I had put that in the first one also.
I don't know. I like the bone broth. I like the oily, like there's just more I don't
Flavor?
know. Not more flavor. It's just it feels more like there's more girth to it, you know.
Okay. Girth. That's an interesting choice of words.
I want to say meat, but there's less meat in
Listen.
the bone broth.
We typically do bone broth more, so that's what we're used to having. And this bone broth didn't actually turn out as, it didn't really look gelatinous at all, but it usually does. So maybe it's because I put a little bit too much water in there, I'm not sure. So just cover those bones up, and that should help. So, you got any final words?
You know, we drink broth more than just put it in soup. And I remember when I first when I would tell people, hey, do you have I wouldn't ask them to have chicken broth. I would tell them that's what I'm drinking, and they would look at me like I'm crazy because who drinks chicken broth as a drink?
People that want good guts.
But yeah, it's like I'd call it a superfood. It's good for you. It helps pull a lot of nutrients out of the animals, and it's a way to use all the animal that you have instead of throwing it away. So.
Yeah, and then those bones, after we made broth out of it, they're gonna go back to the pig, the single pig that we have left here, and she's gonna gobble up, and she's gonna love it, and then we're gonna turn it into bacon.
Yeah, I do like coffee, but I don't really drink coffee anymore. This has got to be better for you than a cup of coffee.
Yes, it's absolutely better.
So I don't know how you guys make broth. Did you make broth? Let us know in the comment section what you do. If there's anything different, some people use the Instant Pot, some people use crock pots, but this is typically how we do it. So let us know if you try it, and talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.